So spanning Asia, Hong Kong's logistics and maritime advantages. Time magazine identified 3 cities that drive the global economy: New York, London, and Hong Kong. So think Asia, think Hong Kong. You've already heard some dazzling facts this morning, facts and figures from speakers this morning, and you would know from your literature that Hong Kong is the world's freest economy. It is the world's most competitive economy. It's the world's most services-oriented economy, with a population of less than 8 million people. It is the 10th largest trading economy. And it is home to 3,600 regional HQ offices, more than 300 of which are from UK companies. But of course, it is in the context of global supply chains, where Hong Kong also punches above its weight, plays a pivotal global leadership role, not only as one of the world's leading logistics hubs, but as the international gateway into and out of the mainland of China. So our distinguished panel are here to explore with you the topic of spanning Asia and to share their insights into the advantages of Hong Kong in the logistics and maritime sectors. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker to you, to present on the aspect of the institutional strengths, the latest developments and initiatives taken to strengthen Hong Kong's logistics and maritime industries. Representing the Transport Functional Constituency of the Legislative Council of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, would you please join me in welcoming our opening speaker, the Honourable Miriam Lau.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you all for coming to this thematic session and for your interest in Hong Kong. As the precursor of the 3 industry leaders who will speak after me, I will just actually lay the scene for you to give you a general overview of Hong Kong's logistics and maritime services, with particular reference to their institutional advantages, institutional strengths, the recent developments and the initiatives taken by government to strengthen these industries. I cannot really set the scene without also providing the backdrop, which is China, which is the fastest growing economy in the world. How fast is it growing? According to statistics, last year the GDP of China increased by 10.3%. That is phenomenal, particularly when we view also the figures for the year 2009, which was the year immediately following the financial tsunami. In 2009, China's GDP grew by 9.2%. So year on year, it's been growing like 9 to 10%. That's a phenomenal rate. And it has a total trade volume of reaching US dollars 3 trillion. Imports surged by 38.7% and exports surged by 31.3%. So these are really very impressive figures. With this dynamism, China has become the 2nd largest economy in the world, and it still remains the world's largest exporter and manufacturer, but it has also risen to the position of being the 2nd largest importer in the world. It is not possible to understand these statistics and impressive figures without knowing or recognizing the very important changes that are occurring in China. And these changes are mainly fourfold. Firstly, China in recent years has been shifting its focus to value-added exports, not going mainly for the low-cost items, but increasingly for the high-value exports. Secondly, there is a policy to increase imports. It's a matter of policy by the PRC central government to increase imports for 2 reasons. Firstly, to improve the trade balance, and secondly, to ensure that China's economy does not rely solely on exports. So they deliberately wish to increase the imports. And they also have a policy to boost domestic consumption That started with the year 2008, that was the year of the financial tsunami, when the central government of the PRC put forth a stimulus package of 4 trillion RMB. And those subsidies and policies still continue up to date, and that is to boost domestic consumption. With the economic growth of China, people in China have become more rich. And with affluence come this desire to buy things, desire to buy particularly Western products, particularly UK products. And there is a thirst for luxury items, which I think you've already heard this morning at the symposium. So one of the interesting statistics I have relates to Rolls-Royce. UK used to be the second biggest market for Rolls-Royce. Now China has overtaken UK, because in the year 2010, last year, China increased its sales to China of Rolls-Royce surged by 800%. So you can see, this demand for luxury products, starting with Rolls-Royce, Chanel products, Burberry, all these Western European items, UK items. There's a thirst for all these items, so this is your opportunity, your market. And because of the economic growth of China, more and more countries are shifting into China's economic orbit. At the end, the conclusion of all these statistics show that China not only remains an important manufacturing powerhouse, but it has also become an important consumer market consisting of 1.3 billion people. I now want to come back to Hong Kong logistics. Trading and logistics are together very important for Hong Kong because they constitute one of the 4 economic pillars of Hong Kong. It contributes to 24% of our GDP, and it provides 23% of our total employment. Total employment within trading and logistics is 788,000, of which logistics constitute around 200,000 jobs. So you can see the importance of trading and logistics, in particular logistics. And Hong Kong has many advantages that enables it to provide quality logistics for overseas traders, particularly UK traders, doing business with China and Asia. And these advantages include our strategic location and connectivity, our world-class infrastructure, particularly logistics infrastructure, strong transportation network, institutional strength, national support, and last but not least, the very staunch support given to the logistics and maritime industries by the Hong Kong SAR government and the initiatives taken to strengthen these industries. Come more to tell you more about the strategic location. Hong Kong, as you all know, is situated at the heart of Asia. It's at the meeting place of east-west routes, north-south routes. It's actually best positioned to be the central trading hub of Southeast Asia and the Far East. And it is within 4 hours of the 48 key Asian cities. That's, of course, by flight, by air. And within 5 hours, we can reach half of the world's population. You will hear more of that from the industry leaders who will tell you how they make use of this advantage for the purpose of distributing out of Hong Kong. We are situated at the doorstep of China, at the tip of southern China, really, and we have always been an important gateway to southern China. 70% of the goods passing through Hong Kong relate to southern China, and 20% of China's external trade passes through Hong Kong. I mean, trade in goods, of course. And we are very well connected, not only to the mainland, but also to the rest of the world. We are connected to the mainland by land, and by river, as well as by air. We have convenient roads leading to the border, and we have 4 border crossings. We are also linked to the mainland by river trade vessels. Hundreds of them ply the waters of the Pearl River Delta every day, carrying goods to and from the ports along the Pearl River Delta to our own Hong Kong port. And we are connected to the rest of the world by air and the ocean traffic. On the air side, we have the Hong Kong International Airport, which is world-class. You will certainly hear more of that from the following speaker, Stanley, the CEO of the Hong Kong Airport Authority. And the Hong Kong International Airport, of course, has become the busiest cargo airport in the world. That was from last year. Both in terms of international as well as domestic cargo, Hong Kong has become the busiest cargo center. Previously, Memphis did more domestic cargo and therefore was #1 in the world. In the year 2010, last year, we managed to climb up to the top position. And every week, about 6,000 flights connect Hong Kong to 160 destinations, including 45 on the mainland. And the Hong Kong International Airport provides excellent service, and our excellence has been recognized by the many awards that we have received over the years. On the ocean side, our container port is, of course, we're situated in a natural deep sea harbor, so we have a container port that is able to manage some of the bigger container ships in the world. We are the 3rd busiest container port in the world, and every week we have 400 sailings from Hong Kong going to 480 destinations in the world. So our sailing schedules are both comprehensive as well as frequent. And when I talk about that being the 3rd busiest container port, we were doing 23.7 million TEUs a year last year. And for the airport, we were doing 4.13 million tons of cargo at the airport. No doubt, again, you'll be hearing more from both Mr. Tung as well as Mr. Hui later on. Our connectivity to the mainland as well as the world by land, sea, and air enables Hong Kong to provide efficient multimodal logistics services to all that use Hong Kong as a platform. Hong Kong, in the area of logistics, has many institutional advantages, and these include, there's so much that I need to go through them very quickly. They are firstly our free port status, secondly our free trade, the fact that we uphold free trade, free market, free flow of capital and information, our simple and low tax regime, our strong rule of law because we maintain the common law system of common law legal system, which is underpinned by an independent judiciary. We have transparent and clean government with stable government policies. This is very important. If you look around the world, there are many governments that may not be not have all these qualities, and you find them all in the Hong Kong government. We're stable, we're clean, transparent, and intellectual property protection is very strong in Hong Kong. We have effective laws and enforcement that ensures that whoever brings in brand name goods, they will be very well protected in terms of their IP rights. And we have other industries that support the logistics industry like IT, so we have very good IT infrastructure. Of course, IT is very important for modern logistics. And we have also got a well-developed and mature, high-quality financial and legal services, which also is important for promotion of logistics in Hong Kong. Last but not least, we have an experienced bilingual speaking, maybe trilingual as well, workforce with lots of experience in China, knowing the language, knowing the culture, knowing the people on China, and this is very important when you want to do trade with China. And these people, these workers, not only have good experience in China, but they also have very good international connections. They have a very good network with their international counterparts, and this again is very important when you're doing trade between China and the rest of the world. So these institutional advantages, in particular, the fact that we have experienced workforce, the fact that we have effective IP protection, these are very important when you wish to do distribution out of Hong Kong in regard to your high value products or brand name goods. This is very important. I now wish to touch on maritime services because logistics and maritime are very closely related, but they are in fact their own separate disciplines. Maritime services, in terms of maritime services, London, of course, is still very much the maritime center of the world. However, it is a real fact that the focus or center of gravity of international shipping has, over the past 2 decades, shifted from Europe to Asia. And there are 3 facts that substantiate this statement. Firstly, 5 of the world's top shipping lines are Asian. Secondly, about half of the world's merchant fleet are owned or operated by Asian companies. And thirdly, last year, 13 of the world's top 20 container ports are Asian ports. So these 3 facts stand to prove that actually international shipping has come to Asia. Hong Kong has a long heritage in maritime services. I'm sure Mr. Tung will be telling you more about that when he comes to his speech. At the moment in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong ship owners together own about 9% of the world's merchant fleet. And we have in Hong Kong 700 shipping-related companies that provide high-quality shipping services. These include ship management, ship finance, marine insurance, legal services, arbitration, shipbroking, ship surveying, to registration. We are an active member of the international shipping community. We are represented on major international maritime bodies and conferences, and we are an associate member of the International Maritime Organization, the IMO. Many of the logistics advantages and institutional strengths that I just mentioned also relate to maritime services. So I will not repeat them, but I would like to add that in respect of maritime, there are other institutional strengths and advantages, and these include the fact that our arbitration awards are enforceable in more than 140 jurisdictions. We have double taxation relief agreements with 29 tax administrations worldwide, and we have a high-quality Hong Kong shipping register, which at the moment we have over 1,800 vessels with a total registered tonnage of 62 million tons. When we returned to China back in 1997, we were only 5 million tons. But that was, so we have improved a lot since 1997. And the importance about the shipping register, which I would ask you to note, is that we have no restriction on owning or financing of ships. No nationality restriction. No nationality restriction. So whatever nationality you come, you're welcome. And it's also an advantage, maritime advantage in Hong Kong, that we have access to abundant capital for development of maritime enterprises. I think Hong Kong is very unique in that we can raise funds easily, unlike in many jurisdictions, and we've heard this morning that perhaps even here it's not so easy to raise funds, but in Hong Kong we have access to abundant capital, and it's much easier to raise funds in Hong Kong. And maritime raising marine ship finance is quite renowned in Hong Kong, and many of our the ship owners raise funds for building of their ships out in Asia. So these are some of the maritime advantages over and above the logistics advantages that I mentioned earlier on. And national support for the logistics and maritime industries is very important. I would just mention 2. Firstly is the 12-5-year plan for the national economic and social development of the PRC. The outline of that clearly stated that the central government of the PRC supports Hong Kong in 2 regards. Firstly, it supports Hong Kong to remain an international maritime center. Number 2, it supports Hong Kong to develop into a high-value infantry management and regional distribution center. This is, of course, above all the other support that the government also gives to nurturing new industries with advantages. But in the area of logistics and maritime, these are the 2 main support that the central government of the PRC has explicitly stated in the plan. And of course, knowing the Chinese, they will live up to their word. They will support us. The second one, which I think might interest you very much, and it has been mentioned also in the symposium this morning, is the closer economic partnership arrangement of the mainland, and otherwise known as SEPA, which actually gives a preferential treatment to Hong Kong service providers. And Hong Kong logistics and maritime operators has actually used SEPA for early access to the Chinese markets, so to speak. And even overseas enterprises can enjoy the benefits of SEPA. You may ask why. It's very easy. If you come to Hong Kong to set up a headquarters, set up an office there, or otherwise, if you thought that too cumbersome, you might consider partnering with a Hong Kong firm or buying out a Hong Kong firm, and you'll be entitled to the benefits of SEPA. It's quite easy, really. And I was just in a seminar in Los Angeles a couple of days ago, and there was a gentleman there who actually shared his experience with us, and he said that he was able to get into China within 18 months. You know, but the opening up of China started 30 years ago. He was late, but he caught up within 18 months, all because of SEPA. So I think this is some experience that you might wish to consider. You might think that I have omitted to talk about the policies of government or the initiatives, which I think you all came to hear about. You know, how did government support the logistics and maritime industries? And I did mention just now that the Hong Kong government does give us a lot of support. And of course, the organizers today include the Locks Council and the Maritime Industry Council. Those were councils set up by the Hong Kong government. It's not a government organization as such, it's an advisory body to the government. Both these organizations, the members consist of the public sector and the private sector, more so of the private sector than the public sector, and each of them becomes a forum for exchange of views between government and the private sector. And to put it more plainly, it's for the private sector to be advising the government what initiatives it should take in order to assist the industry to grow. So we have one for the logistics development and one for maritime industry. So this is as a starter, I would say that this is one of the supports given to us by the Hong Kong SAR government. In terms of logistics and maritime, the Hong Kong SAR government also very robustly promotes the use of IT, because that is modern logistics and modern maritime have extensive use of IT, and we have in place systems such as E-Man, roll cars, Optus, RFID. E-Man, of course, is an electronic manifest declaration, and roll cars similarly for the land-based transportation. Optus is an onboard truck information system to assist the truckers to achieve greater efficiency, and various applications of RFID. I'm sure you're very familiar with that. Hong Kong government also spends a lot of money on building transport infrastructure for logistics, and the latest one being the building of the Hong Kong-Macau Bridge, which is due to become completed in the year 2016. And when that is completed, it would open up Hong Kong to another big market out in the western of the PRD. It actually connects Macau and Zhuhai, and we've heard that just now I was talking about China going for high value or value-added exports, the factories being shifted to the interior of the China, leaving the coast for lighter industries, value-added industries. And I think the western part of the PRD is actually opens itself up for maybe the lower end of those industries, leaving the coast, the coast areas for the high-end industries. So it's really uncharted territory. It's the place where the opportunities are. The opportunities are really up for grabs, you know, because it's a new area, so everything, when it starts, there are plenty of opportunities available there. So the Hong Kong government also assists in dredging the container terminal and approach channels. I mentioned that we're already deep sea, but it's not deep enough for the new generation of ultra-large container vessels. So we're dredging our container basin into to 17 meters that will accommodate these very huge vessels. We have 9 terminals now with 24 berths working around the clock, but with the volume of cargo that comes in, we have to prepare for the future. So we are conducting a feasibility study into building a new container terminal. We are also consulting the public on building a 3rd airport runway. The consultation has just finished, and I'm sure Mr. Stanley will tell you more about that consultation in regard to the 3rd airport runway. We are planning the 5th cross-boundary crossing control point. I mentioned about 4, and we are already planning a 5th one that is going to open up further the eastern part of the PRD so that more cross-border trucks can pass through with ease. Very important for those who want to come and use Hong Kong as a platform is that our government adopts policies that facilitate trade, logistics, and shipping. I mentioned 2 policies particularly. One is abolition of the wine duty in 2008. Abolition of the wine duty resulted in Hong Kong being developed now into a regional hub for wine distribution and trading. And UK was actually the 2nd largest source of wine imports to Hong Kong last year. So you're doing a lot of business because of this abolition of wine duty. And the second policy which I wish to mention is the abolition of estate duty. I think that was in the year 2007. And that resulted in a boost to our Hong Kong shipping register. I think many ship owners brought around their ships because of this abolition of estate duty. There's no fear that if you have your assets in Hong Kong, you might be grounded with some kind of estate duty that you have to pay in case you pass away. And then we have also a lot of seminars and conferences relating to logistics and maritime. Hong Kong government hosts those regularly. The next one coming around is the Asian Logistics and Maritime Conference, and that's in the year that's in November, this is coming November, and you're all welcome. Lastly, I come to training of maritime services professionals, and we do offer a lot of scholarships at our universities to train up people who want to engage in postgraduate degrees in international shipping and maritime law. So these are all initiatives taken by government over and above other initiatives, the small ones such as provision of land for the logistics cluster and other initiatives to help the industries flourish and develop. So Hong Kong government, as you have also mentioned, as you have also heard this morning, is extremely business friendly, and you can expect that if you come to Hong Kong, either it's through the Hong Kong TDC or Invest Hong Kong, or even if you go approach the Locks Council or the Maritime Industry Council, you would find that we are all very willing to help you, to answer your questions, to help you set up your companies in Hong Kong or whatever business enterprise you wish to establish here. So you would find that the whole community, starting from government to the private sector, would be very helpful, and they will all welcome you to come. In closing, I was just looking through my papers because I think I left out one very important point, which is about the workforce in Hong Kong. I mentioned that we're very experienced and in working with China, but we are also, from the angle of logistics, we are able to offer specialist services, tailor-made services, logistics services, particularly when you are bringing around value-added products or brand name goods. You certainly don't want amateurs to handle those. And we in Hong Kong, we have the expertise, we have the specialists that can cater to your demands. Like, for example, I would like to quote the example of Marks & Spencer's. They use Carry Logistics in Hong Kong as their partner in Greater China because of the expertise that we were able to provide that caters specifically to their particular needs. So that's one point that I was missing, and I was looking through my notes to tell you about that. And in conclusion, I hope that I've, over the past 10, 15 minutes, I think I've used more than 15 minutes, a bit long. I apologize. I hope I've impressed you that Hong Kong is a world-class logistics hub, and if you are minded to access the economically vibrant Chinese market, or if you want to find a platform to explore the exciting opportunities in the other Asian markets, then Hong Kong is actually your preferred choice. And we, as a maritime center, I think London still is the maritime center of the world. Hong Kong is in no way we can challenge that status, but the reality of the matter is that international shipping has moved out to Asia, and with what we have in Hong Kong, the range of maritime services that we have, the maritime cluster that we have, our experience with the Chinese market, our experience with the region, our connections there, we think that if you want to come out to Asia with your business operations, we stand ready to partner you in your success, in your whatever businesses you are engaged in.
Well, Miriam gave you a wonderful overview of all the benefits and the advantages of Hong Kong, and I'm going to try to narrow in on the regional distribution concept, because I think one of the things that's most important in Hong Kong right now is that there is this growing population, and let me just show you a slide. Here the enter. I'm going to do this with the mouse. This is a slide I think that Miriam referred to. I'll show you a picture, and you can see Hong Kong right in the center, and that area of 4 hours to 5 hours flying radius from Hong Kong does cover a huge percentage of the world's population. I've heard half the world's population, but whatever it is, it's a lot of people. Now, admittedly, a lot of these people are not wealthy, and they're not really going to be customers for foreign products at this particular point. But indeed, there is a huge wealth growth, and particularly in China and throughout Southeast Asia as well. I just saw something before I left Hong Kong that said, one of the Huron survey, I think it's called, that there are now 1,000 billionaires, US dollar billionaires in China. It's unbelievable to think that the wealth is growing that significantly. But even if you filter that down into the middle classes who are able to buy Western products, the population is very, very large. It's probably more 300, 400 million in China alone. So that area is significant in terms of buying Western products, whatever they may be. And of course, the luxury industry and wine and some other products are really recognizing that, and it's becoming very important to them. In fact, I can tell you, I'll talk more about wine, but I can tell you that two of the most prominent vineyards in Bordeaux have now sent offspring of the family to live in Hong Kong so they can promote their wines in Far East and particularly in China. I wanted to show you this picture because it's probably a view, unless you've been circling the Earth in a satellite, you probably haven't seen this view before. And it gives you the whole picture of Hong Kong. It's a little bit outdated, sorry, but it does give you a view. Now here is the airport, which Stanley's going to talk about, and that's where he lives and works and operates. And right here is the seaport, which is modernized quite a bit, and this is the one that Miriam talked about, the 9 terminals. We have another part of Hong Kong that is over here somewhere for more of the intercoastal. And up here is the border with China. Very interesting thing for us that live in Hong Kong. Oh, this thing keeps going without me touching it. But this area up in the north on the other side of the border is called Shenzhen, and that area is, when it wasn't that long ago, it was a small village of 700,000 people or so, and now there's as many people living in that area north of the border as there are in Hong Kong itself. But you can see, if you haven't seen this view before, that Hong Kong is a pretty green place overall, and but in the end of the day, it's pretty compact. We have, what you can't see is the road transfer system, but it works pretty well. And within that system, we have a terrific infrastructure. Now, we talked about, there was a discussion about connectivity, And going hand in hand with the proximity of this huge population is the accessibility of Hong Kong. The frequency of flights was discussed. I think that the main thing for people who wish to distribute their product in the region is to be able to put it in one place and be able to filter it out into the other places without a lot of hassle. And I just wanted to show you this. This is a beautiful modern picture of Hong Kong's harbor. This is the business section, but you can see an airplane and ships and everything. And we are a real transportation cycle. In fact, I always think about Hong Kong. We have nothing in the way of natural resources and really no more manufacturing anymore. But we have had transportation in our DNA since it really began back in about the mid-1800s. And so in terms of logistics generally, this has always been a part of Hong Kong. And here's a beautiful picture of our airport, and Stanley will be talking about what's going to happen, what he hopes is going to happen at that airport. But this bit right here in the front, this is the cargo aspect of the airport, and as opposed to the passenger terminal. But the connectivity from both the airport and the seaport is absolutely amazing. I mean, I think you said 160 destinations and 6,000 flights a week or something like that. But so if you are distributing from a Hong Kong base, there is absolutely no problem to get cargo to all of those area, that 4-hour radius area, without any problem. There's plenty of air flights. And here is our seaport, and this seaport is quite amazing. It's relatively new. I don't know, 20 or 30 years old, and the bridge you see there is brand new. But what's amazing to me about the airport or the seaport is we have, in terms of quayside space, we have some of the shortest quayside space, I think, of any major port. But yet, as Miriam said, we are the third. At one time, we were the largest container, the TEU shipping port in the world, and now we're still third with a huge 23 million, I think you said, 23 million TEUs a year. So it's amazing how we can do that with such a small area of quayside, and I guess we'll just keep growing. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what I do. I should actually have, by way of introduction, I've lived in Hong Kong for 33 years. I've lived in Asia for about 46 years. And my business is in the logistics field. Some specialty fields like removals is the biggest thing we do. But we do a lot of what we call 3PL, or fashion distribution and cosmetic distribution within Hong Kong and within the region. So we have a good expertise, I should say, about how this all works and how it's efficient. And what we're finding is that for some of the accounts, one, if I can mention Dunhill as an account, where they bring all of their goods in from various parts of the world, including the UK, and everything comes into Hong Kong. And when it arrives in Hong Kong, it comes into one of our warehouses, one of our facilities, and it's all taken care of, marked and distributed, and sometimes value-added services are put into it. And then it's redistributed either in Hong Kong or throughout the region. And that's a typical case. There are so many companies now that are recognizing that Hong Kong is a very, very good place to form this regional distribution center. And I think the biggest single point that makes Hong Kong effective is that we are a duty-free port. As a duty-free port, you can bring anything in there. There is absolutely minimal paperwork. I think the only reason there is any paperwork is just to keep a tally of what's coming and going. And the only items that are taxable would be tobacco or hard liquor, not wine, and automobiles or something like that. So it is a really unique thing to find a place in the world that has that freedom of movement of goods. So from a regional distribution center, by moving everything into Hong Kong and into a distribution facility, you have made a big step by getting it close to the markets that you're going to be serving without a lot of hassle or paperwork or anything like that. And that's what I think Dunhill and many other companies have found in terms of using Hong Kong as an efficient distribution point. Now, I mentioned about wine, or Miriam mentioned about wine. I think several people mentioned about wine. And we're in that business to a certain extent. And there's two aspects of wine. It turns out that in Hong Kong, many of the Hong Kong people have been great wine collectors for a long time. And so they have been buying wine, but because we live in the tropics in Hong Kong, there hasn't been an efficient place to store wine. And then about 8 years ago, our company rented some underground bunkers that were actually built for World War II ammunition storage in Hong Kong. And because they're so sturdy, they resisted any deterioration. And we rented these from the government, and we turned them into wine storage. So it was the beginning of the establishment of wine storage facilities. And of course, wine has to be stored in certain conditions, cool, dark conditions, that sort of thing. And we didn't know at the time we were setting this up that the government was going to take the tax off wine. Thank you so much, Miriam. It was an absolute unbelievable thing that happened. And I look at the Hong Kong government, when I see things like that, I think this is an entrepreneurial government in a way, because, I mean, what government would give up tax revenue, you know? But they were entrepreneurial, and they saw that giving up that revenue was an investment in terms of creating what actually did happen. We became the wine center for Asia, and we're galloping away in terms of the strength of that. So we actually imported the wine collectors storage that was in here in the UK, to the detriment of the UK storage facilities. I regret, but well, I don't regret actually. But at the same time, the whole momentum of wine distribution and wine sales throughout the region, particularly Hong Kong and China, just grew and grew and grew. And the statistics are quite impressive. I don't have them with me. And I think that this is a case of a distribution center developing to meet the needs of a specific product. I think Miriam mentioned there are specific industries. Some are specialists in medical goods, some are specialists in food products, and wine is a specialty as well. But it's been fantastic to be part of it and to watch it happen and to see finally, because we used to have as much as an 80% tax on wine, on the value of wine. So we didn't get a lot of expensive wines there because this tax was pretty onerous. But now we get good wines at all the restaurants, and it's a wonderful thing. Now, in our own facility, we have the distribution process, and I'm just going to show you a couple of pictures. This is a typical storage, and we do a lot of hanging garments for fashion houses from Europe, and actually some of them come even from China. The Shanghai Tang goods are made in China. They come into Hong Kong, and they're redistributed in many ways. I don't know if you're familiar. I guess you're familiar with Shanghai Tang. They're here in London as well. And but they do all these hanging garments. And in the process, we often will, as Miriam said, add value-added services to these. This is a kind of a typical setup of a facility. And I should mention that in these in Hong Kong, we have a lot of what were formerly built as factories. And when all the manufacturing moved to China in the late 70s, early 80s, and onward, these buildings, which some of them were fairly new, were being converted into distribution facilities. And so this is a typical one of the floors of one of our facilities. And as you can see, it has all different types of racks. In the blue area in the middle is the VAS is a value-added services area where we will do things like this: barcoding, labeling, price tagging, packaging, quality. And you know, one of the real key secrets to Hong Kong's success is the people, and I'll explain that, because it is true that wages are higher in Hong Kong than they would be in many other countries of Asia. There's no denying that. But that is made up for in many ways by the efficiency and the intelligence of the people and the hard work. I must say, the people we hired to do some of these jobs are so quick and so efficient at what they're doing that it really does make it a good place for which to add services or add value to any of the products that are coming in. Sometimes it's price tagging. Sometimes, if you can see these ladies with the little labels there, to sell things in China, for example, you very often have to have the ingredients or something in Chinese language, and so they put labels on all the different products. These happen to be neckties, but it really is a wonderful, efficient workforce, and one that you know, I'm proud to be a part of it. The technology side is also significant, because in the distribution process there is a lot of technology required to track the in and out goods and other things. And this is what we are working with. Miriam mentioned about RFID and some of the new technologies. I can tell you, if there is a new technology in logistics, Hong Kong will have it if they don't even invent it, because it's really a key part of the system that we operate in Hong Kong. So I'm a great believer. We do physical distribution in China as well, and I'm a great believer that Hong Kong is the real regional place to do distribution for the reasons that I've mentioned. The financial aspect was mentioned. I mean, sometimes when we Hong Kong salesmen go out to the world and talk about it, it's almost hard to believe how the tax advantages of operating in Hong Kong. And one of the reasons I think the growth of it has been so strong over the years is because the business people who are operating there make profits, and they get to keep most of it, and most of us tend to reinvest those profits in our business. And that's a huge advantage. So when you think about governments, either they take your taxes away and you have what's left to live on, or they let you have the money and take a minimal tax and let you invest in your business. I'm a great believer in the latter process, I have to say. There are a number of excellent distribution companies throughout Hong Kong, and more coming all the time. We are one company, and we're certainly not far from the biggest. Kerry obviously is a big one, and a number of others, TNT, and I think FedEx has got a distribution system. And so there's a lot of options. But I think for anyone, whether they're a major manufacturer or a smaller manufacturer, the option of distributing through Hong Kong is a fantastic one. One other thing I will mention is that a number of companies now are doing internet trading. And there's a company I know personally, it's a company called Racing the Planet, and they have a distribution center here in London and a distribution center in Hong Kong. And most of their sales are through the internet. So when that sale comes in, if it's an Asian buyer, the goods are in Hong Kong and they distribute it out of there. And the same is true if it's in Europe, it will come from London. But I think there's going to be more and more of this type of thing going on, where there'll be internet sales, and the storage and distribution point would be in a place like Hong Kong. So I know the time is short, and we want to get the other speakers up here, but I would just conclude by saying that I think Hong Kong is thought of primarily as a financial center, but the reality is we are a very, very strong logistics center. Miriam cited how many people are working in it and how big a part of our economy it is. And I think that if you're in touch with anyone who wants to distribute product in Asia, Hong Kong is the ideal place to do it. So I hope you'll come and distribute with us. Thank you.
It's a great pleasure and my honor also to be speaking to you about the competitive advantage of Hong Kong as the world's #1 air cargo hub. I think just now Miriam, Honorable Miriam, has given you an overview about logistics in general in Hong Kong, and I certainly would take no shame in perhaps repeating, I think, some of the obviously very important points that she mentioned about the Hong Kong International Airport. Mark just mentioned, of course, we have now changed to be the #1 air cargo airport in the world. In fact, since 1996, I think it's right, it's about 15 years, we've been the busiest international air cargo. Obviously, Memphis is very much domestic, so, but in terms of total number, we only sort of surpassed this airport last year. But in terms of international, we've been the #1 for a very long time, since 1996. Now, geographically, I think you've heard also that many times Hong Kong is located at the center of Asia. China's southern tip, and of course, the world's new, which in fact Asia, China being the world's new economic powerhouse. And this is also, I think, within sort of short flying distance of half the world's population size, where it's considered 4 hours or 5 hours, but pretty much we're in the center of where actions are. Now, Hong Kong, in fact, is a preferred gateway to the mainland, and particularly, again, it's been mentioned, the Pearl River Delta, which is also known as the world's manufacturing house. Practically, I think every store you now visit in US or perhaps the UK, when you flip over some of the garments or whatever that's made in China, and it can show you quite a big part of that actually comes from the Pearl River Delta. So nowadays, I think the figure shows that 30% of the mainland's trade value, including re-exports and offshore trade, is actually intermediate through Hong Kong. Now, when you also consider that Hong Kong has the freest economy in the world, underpinned by a very well-established common law legal system, that's also a very important point that's been mentioned by many of the speakers this morning. A low corporate tax regime, again, important provision of world-class professional services, and embracing culture for peoples of different ethnicities. Hong Kong has many distinct advantages as a base for companies to access the vast markets of China, mainland, and of course Asia, the rest of Asia. Now in 2010, of course, some around 1,300 regional headquarters were located in Hong Kong. Last year, Hong Kong received, I think that's mentioned also by Lord Green this morning, Hong Kong received a record high of 69 billion of FDI, foreign direct investment, making it the world's third largest recipient of FDI. In fact, I think for the record also, for the 13th consecutive year, Hong Kong continues to be the second largest FDI recipient in Asia after the mainland. This is clearly a great place to do business, and Hong Kong International Airport is a key reason, I would suggest. Let me see. This is really our Hong Kong International Airport, which in fact I think to Jim just show you another view, I think from another angle. I think that was the most stunning view of our airport. But that's it. Well, this is also another view. In fact, it's towards the what we call for people who've been to this airport. If you're taking off towards to see, that's the western, I think western part of the airport. Anyway, we've got 2 runways there. Now in 2010, Mark mentioned certainly we became the largest, the airport that handled the largest sort of tonnage of air cargo, handling 4.13 million tons. I think the Honourable Miriam also mentioned that number. This, I think, achievement is a clear reflection on the competitiveness and, of course, the success of HKIA as the world's #1 air cargo hub. It also, I think, reflects the relationship, the very close relationship between the mainland and Hong Kong. And as HKIA handles about 75% of the air cargo generated by the Pearl River Delta. Now, the development of HKIA is the world's #1 air cargo hub, as indeed, as a regional and international aviation center, has been achieved, I think, on the back of the extensive network of air services linking Hong Kong with the rest of the world. And this, of course, in turn, in fact, has been enabled, has been made possible by the government's aviation policy of what we've been saying, progressive liberalization. Where I think in very practical terms, any airlines, anyone who wants to start up a service in, air services into Hong Kong, is a very little chance that you'll be rejected. Now, it's whatever you want to do, I think you will get it. Airport is not capacity constrained. Aviation policy is so liberal, and there's a market there. So that, I think, sums it all for on the comparative advantages of Hong Kong. Now, in fact, now we have, again, as you mentioned, we have about 95 international airlines, including, of course, the highly competitive home carriers such as Cathay Pacific. We have 160 destinations linked to our airport, and of which we have about 45 of them, of these destinations, on the mainland. We have now roughly about 900 flights a day, 900 movements. In fact, it's gone up from about 800 to about 900, 920 a day now. And of that 900, 920, we have about close to, I think in the peak periods, about 180 all-cargo aircraft movements at this airport, which I think this number must be the largest in the world. Now, apart from the all-cargo flights, we have also about 40% of the air cargo that we carry now being carried in the belly hold of the passenger services. You can really see here we're bringing out the point that not only just air cargo, freighter services, but also the passenger network at our airport that really, in total, makes Hong Kong a very competitive, very successful air cargo hub. Now, in the also again, it's been mentioned. I think the sort of the central government's latest national top 5-year plan. Central government reiterates support for Hong Kong to coordinate, consolidate and strengthen its competitiveness as a transportation hub and of course aviation being part of it. So the planning and also the completion of some cross-boundary infrastructures. For example, it's been mentioned again, I take no apologies in saying that again, the Hong Kong to Macau bridge, which in fact lands right next to our airport. So you can really imagine how we actually integrate, I think, all the transportation infrastructure, the bridges, the airport, and also, of course, the container ports together to really give you a seamless transportation system in moving your cargo. All these, of course, infrastructures, I think, will further enhance the cooperation and integration of Hong Kong with the Pearl River Delta. These infrastructures will also facilitate and generate additional flows of people, goods, capital, and information between Hong Kong and the Pearl River Delta, and in fact, for their on to the rest of the mainland. Hong Kong will play an even more important role as the gateway, not just a gateway, now it's the gateway between the mainland, particularly the PRD, and of course the rest of the world. Manufactured goods or components or imports for the mainland can be transported speedily to Hong Kong by road transportation on the extensive and rapidly developing highway network on the mainland. For those who in fact have been to the Pearl River Delta, I think you will see for yourself the amazingly extensive and also top quality highway system that has been developed in the region, and that of course in turn is important for transportation of manufactured goods out of PRD and into Hong Kong, and then of course on air services out of our airport. Now what's more, while Hong Kong has long enjoyed free port status, again important, I think Jim just mentioned, with a major competitive advantage, we're also continuously improving the customs facilitation process to allow efficient round-the-clock or air cargo customs clearance operations. Hong Kong International Airport is also 100% airway built already, enabling shippers, freight forwarders, airlines, cargo terminals to facilitate e-freight, which in turn will then enhance transparency and also tracking. Now, at industry level, logistics companies in Hong Kong have built strong reputations for professionalism and experience in air cargo consolidation, which is important to maintaining Hong Kong's status as a competitive air cargo hub. For example, cargo depots have been set up by Hong Kong air cargo handlers at strategic locations in the Pearl River Delta to reach out to sources and facilitate the flow of goods back to Hong Kong for consolidation. And onward forwarding by air or by sea. Now, with an extensive network of international air services, Hong Kong International Airport enables business flexibility and timely delivery of goods to and from virtually all the world's key markets on both the passenger and all cargo flights. Now, despite sluggish economic growth in recent months in most parts of the world, which has caused a decline of both air cargo and sea exports since the second quarter of this year, express integrators operating at our airport continue to experience very positive throughput growth. Demand for more time-definite door-to-door services on the rise, and our international airport provides an excellent platform for these companies to further expand their businesses in Asia. This is demonstrated by the growing volume of DHL's Central Asia hub, as well as the recent expansion of the Asia-Pacific regional office in Hong Kong. And again, really what Jim mentioned about the sort of a trade on the net, on the internet, whether it's for international or even say for domestic market in the mainland, and you'd be very surprised. People who are in the business, courier service, you know this company, what we call Shenfeng, also sort of a FedEx-alike operation, a courier in China has been expanding and growing their business from zero, practically 10 years ago, today to today they even start to own aeroplanes. So that really, I think, tells you how I think internet, on the net sort of trade has flourished also on the mainland. A new cargo terminal, of course, on our part, a new cargo terminal is being currently under construction at our airport by Cathay Pacific Airways. When it's complete in 2 years' time, we will then bring our total cargo handling capacity to more than 7 million tons. Now, in short, I think we are, as the Hong Kong International Airport, we're very well positioned for growth in the coming years. Now, despite the downturn in the US and EU economies, China will continue to be the engine for growth. Now, what is particularly interesting to note is how mainland trade patterns are changing. Statistics shows that in the first half of this year, the value of China's imports grew almost 28% year on year compared to 24% for exports. Again, of course, that's been mentioned, but I think it's important again to repeat that point. Now, there certainly is no accident why we're seeing this. This is not really just by chance happening. According to, of course, again, the nation's 12th five-year plan, the country's disposable income per household is expected to rise, thereby boosting domestic consumption. Growth in domestic consumption will naturally increase demand, which in turn will positively impact all segments for logistics and transportation services into and within China. In the past, Hong Kong has played a leading role in facilitating the export of goods made in China to international markets. Now, Hong Kong will become another preferred gateway to support China's anticipated import growth. Hong Kong International Airport, with extensive air network and seamless intermodal linkage to China mainland, is going to play a leading role in this. In the long term, I certainly believe that the mainland will continue to be the focus of the world. Many others share this view. However, however you look at it, China will become the largest economy in the world over time, and the business opportunities arising from this development will be, of course, enormous. Now, we, as the Hong Kong International Airport, is very well positioned to leverage these opportunities and support the country's development. Based on a recent study in conjunction with, of course, our own feasibility study into whether or not we need a third runway at this airport, this airport is projected to be handling close to about 9 million tons of air cargo per year in about 20 years' time. And as the leading air cargo hub in the world, Hong Kong International Airport will, of course, continue to enhance its handling capacity and provide world-class facilities to meet growing demand. Now, Hong Kong has long been known as the traditional access point for multi-companies into the mainland, but the fact that it continues to rank as one of the best places to do business, it is the world's freest economy and one of the most competitive, means that it's not just a PRD hub or a mainland hub, but an Asian and international business, financial and logistics center, able to cater to the needs of the world's leading companies. With the support of one of the world's finest airports, Hong Kong's future is indeed very bright.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, first of all, thank you for inviting me to share my views at today's panel discussions. You have already heard all the Hong Kong logistic and maritime advantages from the previous speakers, and my presentation would just to reinforce what they have already talked about. But particularly, I'll explain more about why the opportunities in China market are more easily within reach for global business if you use Hong Kong as the starting point. China is a massive country with 1.3 billion people. That is more than 4 times of the United States. China has also achieved impressive GDP growth along its path of modernization. No one can deny that the global impact China has had on the world trade since joining WTO has been phenomenal. This is particularly significant in the changing movement of consumer goods. China is now the place where raw materials are sourced, where the goods are manufactured, and where the final products are distributed from. every player in the supply chain has had to adjust their game and become more competitive. Where does Hong Kong fit into all this? Hong Kong knows a thing or two about staying competitive and moving up the value chain. Hong Kong was traditionally a trading hub for the international businesses community to enter the China market. Hong Kong used to make cheap textiles and toys. As manufacturing industries move across the border to China, our business people realize they have to start offering the high-value services behind the product development. Now, you could say we don't make things, we make things happen. Of course, like all great success stories, a little bit of luck was involved. We are particularly fortunate due to our strategic location at the heart of Asia, our natural deep water harbor, and natural entrepreneurial spirit of our people. Hong Kong is now the third trading partner with China, handling 70% of all cargo movement in South China. Traditional bread and butter trading services has evolved into world-class, high-value, premier supply chain management services. Strategic ports around the Pearl River Delta region have played an important role in moving the huge volumes of goods and raw material to and from the world factories. However, trade and logistics services have moved far beyond simply moving boxes and the lowest cost operation. Hong Kong has transformed itself into a high value added service economy. What do I mean by this? Hong Kong industry sectors have evolved to form a sophisticated cluster of world-class supply chain and maritime logistics services. We manage the sourcing of material, procurement, distribution, and transport along the entire supply chain. Hong Kong operators are savvy about business, about global business. We know that speed, reliability, and transparency in logistic flows are the key to profitability for global businesses. These days, missing a distribution deadline can lead to a delay in a product launch, resulting in a major losses in share price for the world's largest brands. Hong Kong manages this risk by offering the world's best supply chain services. These ranges from coordination, consolidation, distribution, and management of inventory, to more specific maritime and logistics services such as ship finance, ship management, to legal, arbitration, and financial services. The high quality of ships flying the Hong Kong flag is world-renowned. A Hong Kong shipping register having grown from 5.5 million gross ton in 1997 to today a total of 63 million tons. And now we are one of the top 4 registers in the world. Hong Kong is one of the only 6 flag states admitted to the US Coast Guard's Core Ship 21 program, which recognized the quality, performance, and management of ships entering US waters and very low detention rates following inspections. As well as trading and logistics services, financial services make up another crucial element of Hong Kong's 4 economic pillars. Global companies can strengthen their business activities by taking the advantage of Hong Kong's financial services for fundraising. Hong Kong has become the #1 destination for raising IPO funds globally for 2 years in a row, with an average daily turnover of $8.8 billion last year, ahead of London and Singapore. The world's top investment bankers recommended that logistics and supply chain companies list in Hong Kong rather than other global financial Eurozone. And the region accounts for 40% of China's GDP. To improve the flow of people and goods between Hong Kong and major Chinese cities, 5,000 kilometers of high-speed railway will be completed by 2012. Another 5,000 kilometers is expected to be completed between 2012 and 15. These massive infrastructure projects over the next 5 years also spell huge opportunities for the business community. Despite increasing competition from maritime hubs in the region, such as Shanghai and Singapore, Hong Kong continues to offer the deepest and the widest range of services for global companies wishing to take advantages of opportunities in the China market. Hong Kong service provides a ready and capable platform for both overseas business to launch into the mainland or for mainland businesses to launch into overseas markets. With the expected growth of domestic consumer market and expansion of the hinterland into the 9+2 region, the movement and volume of goods can only increase further. Foreign companies will continue to take advantage of the expertise of Hong Kong companies can provide. I'm very confident that Hong Kong will continue its role as the leading global logistic hub. In terms of access to China, we are simply unrivaled in terms of the strategic location, our business-friendly government, and its sustainable competitive advantage.